Hello and welcome to the Calmcast, a time to feel calm and think clearly. I'm Claire Downham, the Queen of Calm, a transformational life coach. I was a burnt out head teacher who finally made the journey to calm after years of trying, and I want to prevent you from having to do the same. The Calmcast is a series of short explorations, gently guiding you back to your natural state, which is calm and clarity. Just listen like you would listen to music, with an open mind and curiosity. There's nothing else to do. Now let's relax into today's episode. So this episode about trying to control feelings has come because I had an insight myself, really, when I was on a group coaching call last week. And I had this insight about trying to control our feelings. And I said to the group of people who were in the group coaching call, I just said, trying to control our feelings is like trying to fix a system which isn't broken. And I felt a huge wave of emotion at that point. And another lady in the room actually had to grab the tissues too. She felt a huge wave of emotion. And I think that emotion for me was relief, because I have spent a lot of time, a long time, trying to fix my feelings, trying to control my feelings, trying to be in a different feeling state. And that desire to do that came from this misunderstanding about where my feelings are coming from and how my system actually works. So here's a little story that might help you to understand this. So I want you to imagine that one day your other half, unbeknown to you, decides to clear out a load of old bits of metal and stuff from the back garden, and he loads it all into the boot, ready to go to the tip. But unfortunately, he gets distracted or something else happens, and he doesn't end up going to the tip that day. So the next day, you go out in the car. You don't know there's all this rubbish in the boot. You go out in the car and there's a terrible noise, rattling, banging, crashing noise. Now, you've not had this car very long. It's always been fine. You've never had any problems before, and it's a pretty new car. So you think, oh, I better go get this, I better sort this out. So you open the bonnet and you start to have a poke around. And you find that you can't fix it. You try all sorts of different tools, and you try some techniques that you've picked up from some YouTube video, and you try to do lots of all sorts of other things. You end up Googling it, of course, to see if you can find a way to fix the car, and you even end up walking to the local library. Luckily, it's not far from where your car is. And you go rooting on the car repair shelves looking for the book to fix your car. And you spend hours and hours and hours doing this. And eventually you're beside yourself. You're crying, you're frustrated, you're tired. And you still feel like the car isn't working properly. You keep trying again. You keep starting the engine and driving a little way, and then that noise starts again. And so you start again trying to fix it. And you go round and round and round in circles until you're basically stood next to your car, frustrated, crying, tired. And just at that moment, a lady walks up to you. A mysterious lady. Very calm lady, actually. She might be called the Queen of Calm, actually. And she suggests that you just sit down and take a breath. Just pause. And so you think, well, I've got nothing to lose, actually. I'm tired of doing this. I am going to sit down and I'm going to listen to what she's got to say. But what the lady actually does is she 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 turns your engine over and she drives the car a little way for you, and she goes and she stops the car and she opens the boot and shows you that the boot is full of stuff, and that's where the noise is coming from. The problem is when we don't really know how something is working, we can spend a long time trying to fix it, when in actual fact it was never broken in the first place. Personally, I spent a long time doing that, trying to fix my feelings, trying to control them, trying to have less of some and more of another. And it just, over the last couple of years, has made less and less sense to do that as I have understood better how my system works. I mean, I seem to be flooding with car metaphors this morning, but when you learn to drive and you first get in the car and there's knobs and buttons and switches and pedals, 3 of them probably. There's all that going on in the car, and then outside the car there's life going on, and that seems to be very busy when you're on the road. And when you first learn to drive, it's overwhelming, and you've kind of got the driving instructor sitting next to you going, right, it's this, then that, then that. And I mean, I sat with both my children as they learned to drive, and remember being in that kind of, don't do that, watch that, look out for that, kind of all the way. But after a while, I remember with my children, I stopped having to say, it works like this, it works like that bit works like that bit works this way. And now, they drive their car. Well, my son drives his car. My daughter never got around to finishing learning to drive, but my son drives his car, and he does that unconsciously, virtually. And because he's in that really good unconscious state with driving, it means, in fact, 2 years ago, he did actually avoid a pretty horrendous accident. He had an accident, but it could have been much worse if he hadn't had his wits about him. And it's just, that's amazing that in just a short period of time of driving independently, he now knows how it all works. He knows how the vehicle works. He knows how road works. And he was able to avoid a really serious accident by turning his car, actually, probably a little bit counterintuitively, really, towards the car that was pulling out in front of him. But that avoided him going into oncoming traffic. So when we know how a system works, life just gets a heck of a lot easier. You will have come across that in your, if you work and you go to a new job and there's a whole computer system to sort out, and you don't get it at first, and then you work out the new systems and you know what you're doing, and then you can kind of problem solve and work things out yourself. And you don't need your boss stood over you all the time. There's so many beautiful metaphors for this in life, but I think we've missed it with our psychological system fundamentally. We need to know how it's working before we start trying to change our feelings. And in actual fact, when you know how it works, it makes less and less sense to try and change our feelings. You might be wondering, how does it work then? Probably should share that at some point in this. It works inside out as opposed to outside in. We think it works outside in. We think stuff outside of us makes us feel things, or we think, oh, I'm not okay, so that's where the feeling's coming from. It doesn't. It's a really simple mechanism. Your thoughts and your feelings are inextricably linked. Sometimes you'll be aware of a thought first, sometimes a feeling first, but when you feel a feeling, that's your very clever system, like a warning light on a dashboard. It's all car metaphors today. Just tapping you on your shoulder, or, sometimes it's a big red warning light, but often it's just a gentle tap on the shoulder to say, oh, you need to know that your thinking's off today, right now. Not today, because it won't last that long, but right now your thinking's off. It's just an update from your psychological system. And when you know that, when you know, oh, my thinking's off, then it might make sense to do something. It might. or it might not. It might make sense to wait, or it might make sense to meditate, or it might make sense to go for a walk. But you'll know what's the right thing to do for you. You don't need somebody else to tell you. You don't need self-development. You don't need any of that. You just need to be aware of how your system works. So yeah, trying to control our feelings is like trying to fix a system that isn't broken. Knowing that really is truly transformational. Thank you so much for listening. There's nothing to do now but bring some awareness to how this is working out in your life. Listen regularly to experience longer and longer periods of calm. This has been the Calmcast with Claire Downham, Queen of Calm. Take care and keep listening.